Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. In the previous video, we talked about the tax differential between Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom, how it was already large, but how it would grow even larger if Jeremy Hunt decides to cut taxes or increase allowances. Because Humza Yousaf has confirmed he will not be passing on any of the cuts. He says they need the money, they don't want to cut services. Well, of course, I said in there that you could actually do this. You could cut the rates and it wouldn't cost you anything if you made cuts in the right area. And I alluded to the follow-up video, this video, saying do watch. And so if you watched the last one and you're watching this one, well done, thank you. Because here's where I'm going to tell you where they can save money. Of course, it's the obvious one, it's the easy one. It's the foreign embassies. Close them down, save millions, and pass that penny on to the lowest paid and most vulnerable in Scottish society. But no, they don't want to do that. I'm afraid it's quite the opposite. What they want to do is not close the embassies, but to increase the number of them, increase the staffing levels, and ultimately increase the cost. Meaning more tax, I presume. Let's have a look. Now, before we get into it, you may have heard my dog barking in my intro, and he may yet bark even through this part. At the time of recording, it's 8:45 in the morning, and I live very near a school, so people walk past going to school, and he seems to think he owns the road. So if you do hear a dog barking, that's all that is. He's not in trouble. He's just a typical little schnauzer. So yap, 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 yap. How dare those people walk past? There he goes again. Anyway, Angus Robertson hints at creating more taxpayer-funded embassies in South America, Africa and Asia. We have to ask why. They haven't got the money for the services in Scotland now. Why are they wasting ever-increasing amounts of money, spending it abroad, giving jobs for the boys, looking after their own friends and relatives, people they know, on these high salaries and their pleasant little jaunts in foreign climes? There's no reason for it, because every single option that they say that these are for can be handled entirely by the existing British embassy, for which they do not pay a penny. So it is all a massive con, isn't it? Anyway, the Scottish Government's Constitution Secretary, Airmiles Angus, insisted that the SNP executive could look at creating more international offices using taxpayer cash. Now, you notice they've started calling them international offices now, because they did originally call them Scottish embassies, but everyone ridiculed them because they're clearly not. And the staff working in them don't have diplomatic protection. They're not diplomats. And so if they run into trouble, there's no one that they've got no rights. Suppose they're basically just tourists. And even less than that, because they're not actually tourists at all. They have to get work visas to be there, and that costs money. So that's even more money spent. But of course, they're not going to put the cost of the work visas through on that budget. It'll go into a central budget somewhere so they can hide the figures. It's all snide and sneaky, isn't it? But you wouldn't expect anything less from them. And they're currently costing 8 million a year. So that'll rise to 10, 15, 20 million a year by the time they're finished. Why? Angus Robertson hinted that the Scottish Government could open up even more taxpayer-funded embassies, as they've put it in quotes, in far-flung countries and the likes of South America, Asia and Africa. The Constitution Secretary was forced to defend the huge spend on international offices, especially considering the budget cuts announced last month. Oh yeah, you can't see a doctor, your kids aren't getting educated, the hospitals are underfunded, the police is collapsing in front of your eyes, road building isn't getting done, house building isn't getting done, nothing works. But hey, we can give our chums very highly paid, lucrative jobs in foreign countries, and we can pretend that we're a real country. They are a joke, aren't they? Anyway, we were previously told how the SNP executive was blasted after increasing the budget for its network of 9 hubs by more than $1 million in the space of just 2 years. And indeed, at the time of the budget last month, I reported at that point that every single area of policy was either having an actual cut or a real terms cut in funding, except one: independence, and as part of that, these foreign offices. The only part of the whole of government that got a real terms increase. Do you feel better for it? Are your kids better for it? You know, is your granny having a better time in hospital because of it? How's her new knee? No, hasn't got that yet. Why not? Oh, that's right. They're opening offices in Dubai. They want a little office in Singapore, don't they? Just so that some of them, basically, just so Airmiles Angus can fly around the world, first class, supping champagne and eating caviar at 30,000 feet for you to pick the tab up. Anyway, the cost of operating them is set to soar to 7.8 million in the next financial year, with this being a rise of more than $1 million on the 6,800,000 which they cost in 22-23. The 10th one is set to be created in Warsaw, which will be opened before the end of this parliamentary year. In Holyrood on Wednesday, Airmiles was forced to defend the spend on embassies, and considering the £1.5 billion black hole which the SNP were forced to hike up taxes to fill, and now they're announcing even more of these things. Scottish Tory MSP Graham Simpson kicked things off by congratulating the minister for showing up at Parliament, saying, I wonder if this year he's planning to beat his record of travelling to 6 countries in the first 7 months of the year, which he did last year, and it cost £5,500. I don't know if that's each flight or in total, but it's coming on at nearly £1,000 a flight, because you can guarantee he's not going cattle class with the rest of us. He's far too grand and important for that. He said now the SNP government's overseas budget for their offices overseas is increasing to 7.8 million, and that is while budgets for transport, councils and housing are being slashed. So what's the return, he says, on that investment? Well, of course, it's none. Airmiles is just travelling because he likes travelling. He's not doing anything. It's unimportant. It's just spending money for the sake of it so that he can feel like a big man. Look at me, I'm important. No, Angus, you're not. The 9 current international offices are dotted around the world, with premises in Washington, Brussels, Paris, London, Ottawa, Beijing, Copenhagen, Dublin and Berlin, and of course the new one coming in Poland. The UK government has threatened to shut down the ones based in its own embassies if SNP ministers keep breaching guidance when it comes to meeting foreign diplomats, because that's the other thing. They keep talking to foreigners without having Home Office, Foreign Office or Cabinet Office people with them. They could be going against UK-wide policy. They could be discussing things that must not be discussed. They could be saying positions or giving away information that should not be told. It is a national security threat. These people need to be arrested and charged with treason should they do it. And I know I've mentioned it before, and I will keep mentioning it because it's important. We need our version of the Logan Act, just to keep people like that, muzzled, really, for the want of a better word. Anyway, Mr. Robertson told Mr. Simpson to read the report published last year, which showed the benefits of the offices. There's no benefits. It's a load of crap. They lied. That's been proven as well. They did the report and they lied in the report. He said it would generate £1.7 billion of trade revenue. No, there might be £1.7 billion of trade revenue, but it won't be as a result of those offices. It's all bullshit. But then it is the SNP. Bullshit is what they do, and bullshit is all that comes out of that man's fat mouth. Not that you can tell, because he's not in the country often, is he? He's usually flying off somewhere in business class or better. I'm rounding off and I'm coming up and we'll finish the video. So there you go. Rather than spending the increasing amounts of tax that they take on things you actually need, the services that people need, the education of children, law and order, all the important things that a state really should be spending money on, they are tossing it all overboard so they can have little beanos in foreign countries, all at taxpayer expenses, and for Angus to fly to these places, business class, because, he's a very, very important man. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video, and I will speak to you later. Bye.